My truck was gone, not stolen, towed, at midnight from my own driveway on a street I have lived on for 6 years. When I finally tracked down the paperwork at the tow yard, one name kept showing up on every single form. Denise Halloran, my HOA president. The same woman who smiled at me by the mailbox 3 days earlier. I did not know it yet, but that tow truck was about to cost her a lot more than the $180 hookup fee she thought she was charging me. My name is Ryan Coltrane, and until that Tuesday morning, I loved living in Willow Creek Estates. 42 homes, tree-lined streets, a community pool that actually got cleaned on schedule, and a mortgage I could afford because I did the math twice before signing. I am a field service technician for an industrial equipment company. I drive a 2019 Ford F-250, white, crew cab, company decals on the doors, because half my job is hauling diagnostic equipment to job sites before sunrise. That truck is not a toy. It is how I make rent, how I made the down payment on the house at 114 Sparrow Lane, and how I feed my dog, a mutt named Cooper who waits by the window every night around 6. I bought that house 18 months earlier. First one in my family to own property outright. I read the HOA covenants front to back before closing, because I have watched enough stories online to know these boards can turn a nice neighborhood into a battlefield over mailbox paint colors. Section 4, Paragraph 2 of the Willow Creek Estates Declaration of Covenants was clear as day. Commercial and personal vehicles under 1 ton gross weight may be parked in driveways at any time, provided the vehicle is registered, operational, and does not extend past the property line. My truck was registered, it ran fine. It sat entirely within my own driveway, nose to garage door every single night. I checked the covenant again the week I moved in just to be sure I was sure. Denise Halloran had been HOA president for 3 years by the time I moved in. 61, silver bob, always in a quarter-zip fleece with the Willow Creek Estates logo stitched over the heart, because yes, she had those made. She drove a spotless white Lexus and left laminated notices on doors for offenses like a trash can left out 4 hours past pickup. People joked about her behind closed doors, but nobody wanted the fight. I did not want the fight either. For a year and a half, we had exactly 2 interactions, both fine: a wave at the community picnic, a comment about my landscaping that I took as a compliment, nothing that told me what was coming. Then on a Thursday in March, I found a bright yellow notice tucked under my windshield wiper. The notice said my truck violated commercial vehicle parking restrictions and gave me 48 hours to correct it or face a fine. No section number, no citation. Just a threat with a Willow Creek Estates letterhead and Denise's signature at the bottom in blue ink. I photographed the notice, then pulled up the covenants on my phone right there in the driveway. Section 4, Paragraph 2, I had not violated anything. I figured it was a mistake, so I did what any reasonable homeowner would do. I emailed the HOA management company, attached a photo of the relevant page, and asked for clarification. The reply came 4 days later, not from management but from Denise herself, using the HOA's general account. She wrote that the board had recently reinterpreted the vehicle policy to exclude trucks with visible business signage, regardless of weight class, and that my Ford qualified because of the decals on the doors. I read that email 3 times. There was no vote listed, no meeting minutes attached, no amendment filed with the county recorder, which Section 9 of the covenants required for any policy change to be binding. I wrote back and asked for the meeting minutes and the recorded amendment. She did not respond. 2 weeks passed. Nothing happened, and I genuinely thought it had blown over. Then on a Sunday evening, my neighbor Priya knocked on my door, holding her phone out like it was on fire. Denise had posted in the private Willow Creek Estates Facebook group, the one with all 42 households in it. The post did not name me directly, but it did not have to. It described in detail a commercial vehicle repeatedly parked on Sparrow Lane in direct defiance of board notices, and said the board was exploring all enforcement options, including towing at the owner's expense. 41 comments. Some defending me, some agreeing with her. My name was never typed, but every single person in that group knew exactly whose driveway she meant. I did something I should have done from the start. I called the property management company directly, not the HOA email, and asked to speak to an actual person. The woman I reached, a coordinator named Melissa, pulled up my property file while I was on the phone. She confirmed there was no recorded amendment to the vehicle parking section. None. She said the board could propose changes, but until they were ratified by a 2/3 vote and filed, the original covenant language was the only thing that was legally enforceable. I asked her to put that in writing. She said she would send an email that afternoon. That email never came. What came instead 3 days later was a certified letter, not from Melissa, From Denise on official HOA letterhead stating that due to continued noncompliance, a fine of $50 per day would begin accruing retroactively from the date of the first notice. And that failure to remedy the violation within 10 days could result in further enforcement action up to, and including towing at owner's expense as outlined in the community's remedies policy. I sat at my kitchen table that night with Cooper's head on my knee and read that letter 4 times. Retroactive fines. A remedies policy I had never seen and could not find in any document I owned. A woman who had, by her own admission in writing, changed a rule without a vote and was now threatening to have my work truck, the one thing standing between me and my income, hauled away in the dark. I did not know yet how far she was willing to take it. I only knew that whatever came next, I needed proof of everything, starting now. The next morning, I installed a battery-powered security camera under my eave, angled straight down the driveway, the kind that saves footage to the cloud automatically so nobody could ever claim it had been tampered with. I also called the county recorder's office myself and requested a full history of filings against the Willow Creek Estates HOA. It took 2 days, but the clerk emailed me a PDF. 0 amendments to the Declaration of Covenants had been filed in the 11 years since the community was established. Not one. Whatever reinterpretation Denise had described in her email did not exist anywhere except inside her own head, and now inside a written message she had sent from the official HOA account with her name attached. I printed everything. The original covenant page, her email admitting to the reinterpretation. The county recorder's confirmation that no amendment existed. Melissa's verbal statement, which I followed up in writing so there would be a paper trail even if she never sent her own. I put it all in a folder and drove it to the property management office in person on a Wednesday afternoon. I asked to speak with someone above Denise, and I was told the HOA board technically outranked the management company on interpretive matters, which felt like being handed a door that only led back to the same room. That Thursday, I got a text from Priya. She sent me a screenshot from the Facebook group. Denise had posted again, this time with a photo, clearly taken from across the street with a long lens, showing my truck in my own driveway with a red circle drawn around the door decal. The caption read, "Some residents believe the rules do not apply to them. The board disagrees." I stood in my kitchen holding my phone, and for the first time since this started, I felt something other than confusion. I felt angry, not reckless angry. The kind of angry that makes you slow down and get precise. I checked my new camera footage from the night before out of habit, and that is when I saw something I had not expected. At 11:47 p.m. A car pulled up outside my house, engine running, headlights off. It idled there for almost 6 minutes, then it pulled away. The image was too dark to make out a plate, but the shape of the vehicle, low and boxy with a distinctive roofline, looked exactly like Denise's white Lexus. I did not think much of it that first night. I assumed it was nothing. 2 nights later, it happened again. Same time window, same idle, same slow pull away. On the 3rd night, I stayed up watching the live feed on my phone from my bedroom, and at 12:03 a.m., I watched a car door open. A woman got out, walked to the end of my driveway, photographed my truck with her phone flash on, and got back in. The headlights never turned on until she was already at the corner. I paused the footage, zoomed as far as the app would let me, and there she was unmistakably in a Willow Creek Estates fleece, standing at the edge of my property at midnight. The following Monday, I woke up to an empty driveway. No truck, no note. Just tire tracks and a faded rectangle of dry concrete where it had been parked 18 hours earlier. My stomach dropped before my brain even caught up. I called the non-emergency police line to report it, and the dispatcher asked if I had checked with local towing companies first, since this pattern, an HOA-ordered tow with no notice left behind, was more common than people realized. On my 4th call, I found it. Route 91 Towing and Recovery, 40 minutes away, had picked up a white Ford F-250 from Sparrow Lane at 2:14 that morning. The paperwork authorizing the tow had been signed and submitted electronically at 11:52 the previous night by Denise Halloran on behalf of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association. 11:52, 15 minutes before her own camera caught visit to my driveway 3 nights earlier. This was not the first time. This was the pattern finishing itself. I did not drive to the tow yard first. I drove to the police station. I brought my folder, the camera footage on a flash drive, and printouts of every text and email. The officer who took my report, Sergeant Alvarez, watched the midnight clip twice, then asked me to send him the full unedited file directly from the cloud storage, time-stamped and unaltered, so it could not be disputed later. He told me that an HOA board member ordering a tow using authority that was never legally established could cross from a civil dispute into something closer to fraud or even theft of services, depending on how the tow company's paperwork was structured. He said he could not promise charges, but he could promise a documented file, and he opened one that afternoon. Getting my truck back cost $470 in tow and storage fees, cash I did not have budgeted for that week. I paid it because I needed the truck for a job the next morning, but I kept every receipt. Then I did something Denise clearly never expected. I requested an emergency special meeting of the full homeowners association, which Section 11 of the covenants allowed if signed by at least 15% of homeowners. I spent Saturday walking the neighborhood with my folder under my arm. I did not have to explain much. Half the residents had already seen the Facebook posts. 9 households signed before noon. I had my 15% by 2 in the afternoon. The meeting was set for the following Thursday in the clubhouse. 26 residents showed up, more than I had ever seen at any HOA event, including the 4th of July barbecue. Denise sat at the head table in her fleece, visibly rattled that the room was this full. I stood up first before she could open with her usual agenda script, and I laid the folder on the table in front of the whole board. I want to walk everyone through the timeline, I said, because I think most of you are only seeing pieces of it. I read her email admitting the vehicle policy had been reinterpreted without a vote. I held up the county recorder's letter confirming 0 amendments filed in 11 years. Denise tried to interrupt, saying policy interpretation was within board discretion, and I told her discretion does not override a legally binding covenant that every single homeowner in that room, including her, had signed at closing. Then I played the footage. 3 nights of a white Lexus idling outside my house at midnight, and the final clip her own face lit by phone flash, photographing my truck from my driveway at 12:03 a.m., 15 minutes after she personally authorized a tow. The room went dead silent, and then it did not stay silent for long. One resident, a retired paralegal named Frank who lived on Finch Court, stood up and said what everyone was thinking out loud. He said what I had just shown the room was not board discretion. It was one person using a position she was not legally exercising to harass and financially target a specific homeowner on camera in the middle of the night. Another resident asked how many other people had gotten reinterpreted notices over the past 3 years. 6 hands went up. 6 other households, 6 other invented rules, 6 other fines nobody had successfully challenged because nobody else had a camera rolling and a folder full of receipts. Denise stood up, said the meeting was becoming hostile, and tried to adjourn it herself. Frank pointed out calmly that only the board president had authority to adjourn under normal order, but under Section 11, an emergency meeting called by petition could only be closed by majority vote of the members present. 24 hands went up to keep it open. 2 stayed down. Hers was one of them. What happened over the next 6 weeks changed more than just my driveway situation. The board, now operating under intense scrutiny from residents who finally understood what had been happening in their own neighborhood, opened a formal review. Frank, with his paralegal background, volunteered to help compile every reinterpreted notice issued over the past 3 years. 6 households came forward with fines totaling just over $4,000, all of it collected under rules that had never been legally amended or filed. Under the covenant's own removal provision, a board member could be recalled by a majority vote of homeowners for violating fiduciary duty. The vote was scheduled for 3 weeks later. I did not personally lead the recall push. I did not need to. Once residents saw the footage and understood the fine history, the room organized itself. Denise showed up to that final vote alone, no fleece this time, and made a short statement about how the board's decisions had always been made in the community's best interest. 29 households voted. 26 voted to remove her from the board effective immediately. The property management company, facing its own liability question after Melissa's verbal confirmation, was never followed up in writing, agreed, as part of a settlement to refund every improperly collected fine, including my $470 towing bill. And to cover an additional legal review fee, the board voted to commission using association funds Denise had it turned out quietly redirected toward a private security firm without a recorded vote earlier that year. That detail alone took the situation from an HOA dispute into something the county attorney's office asked to review independently. Though that part of the story, I will tell you, is still moving through the system, and I am not going to speculate on where it lands. What I can tell you is what my driveway looks like now. My truck parks there every night, exactly where it always did, exactly where the covenant always said it could. Nobody photographs it anymore. Nobody circles the door decal in red. The Facebook group is quieter, and when someone does post a genuine concern, it gets an actual policy citation attached, because the new board president, Frank, made that the rule on his very first day. I think about that midnight footage sometimes, the woman I had waved to at the mailbox standing at the edge of my property in the dark, and I still cannot fully explain what made someone escalate a parking disagreement into secret nighttime surveillance and an unauthorized tow. Maybe it was never about the truck. Maybe it was about being told no by someone who was supposed to just comply. But I have learned something from all of it that I did not fully understand before this happened to me. A homeowners association is not a monarchy. The covenants are a contract, and a contract only means something if the people bound by it actually read it and are willing to stand in a room full of their neighbors and hold up the page. If you have ever gotten one of those notices that made your stomach drop, the ones with no citation, no vote, no paper trail, you already know exactly how that first night at my kitchen table felt. Save everything. Ask for it in writing. And do not be afraid to fill a room with the people who live around you, because most of the time, they have been waiting for someone to go first. If this story felt familiar, tell me in the comments what your own HOA tried to pull. I read every single one. And if you want more of these, you know exactly what to do before the next one goes up.